Commissioner, good afternoon.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And to your staff, thank you all for joining us today. I have a laundry list of questions, so I hope I could ask for your indulgence and patience with this. Mainly focusing around staffing, overtime expenditures, and some MP1 contract questions. As we know, the contract's expiring on June 30th. So in the numbers that we got last year when we were trying to put this two-year budget together, you were proposing a reduction of overtime upwards of about $457,000, give or take a few dollars. And that was your proposal. And as of just today, as of January 1st to today, you're at a 28% increase in overtime because of severe reduction of staffing overall and 60 retirements just for this fiscal year, which is we're about halfway through. Your department averages about 54 a year, and we're just halfway through, and you're already at 60. So I was wondering if those savings are now ballooned because you're facing such a steep increase in overtime, and you just don't have the staff to meet those needs. Can you answer that, Commissioner?
You really studied the book. So actually, we, good afternoon again. We have had a terrific...
They can't hear you.
I'm sorry. We've had a terrific increase in attrition. It started last year, and it's really accelerated this year. I didn't think that we would ever say it, but we have dipped below 1,000 troopers. We're at 999 at the moment, and several years ago it was 1,200. And so you're correct. It's there's the savings of the salary, but it comes at a cost, and that's the increased overtime. We had last year, as we were reporting, we had reached new lows in terms of overtime spending. We had really brought those expenditures down markedly, and we've not been able to accomplish as much this year. And still, we've done other things to reduce the rate at which it would have otherwise have risen. We have started.
Commissioner, if you could hold on 1 minute. If you could have somebody from IT come down. They're not hearing her on TV right now. So if we could have somebody check into that before.
She's on the portable mic.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah.
If you just turn that other one, the portable one, off for a minute.
Okay.
Then you can talk. I don't know. I'll find out.
Okay.
Just start talking.
All right.
I'll let you know if I get a text.
We have started our 126 training trooper class, and that was something we did with all of your help. First, that was a list that had expired, and we were going to lose the last of what looked like a very strong pool of candidates. That was first extended by executive order and then codified in the appropriations bill. So we were able to get that class up and running. Unfortunately, that's 35 folks, whereas our typical class would be twice that size. But we'll take everyone we can get for the moment. In the meantime, we had issued a new test through DAS, and so we are starting to work through those bands to do all the pre-qualifications prior to making an offer. Of course, we don't have approval yet for the next class, but we're preparing so that we'll be ready when that go-ahead is given. So that speaks, I think, to some of the staffing. Yeah. Did I not touch on anything?
So for referencing the recruit training class, you said you have 35 in there right now?
At present, we started with 52. There's always some fallout at the beginning, but we really want to hold on to everybody we've got.
So in the budget, I believe we appropriated enough funds for 80. So I am assuming you're realizing some savings there if you didn't staff the full 80?
Well, except that you're spending it on the overtime on the back end because you don't have the backfill coming.
Okay. I've received a number of complaints from area troopers and different barracks one barracks in particular, Troop C, out in Tolland, and right now they're reporting an overall staffing number of 26 troopers at that barracks. Is that correct?
I don't think so, but I'd be glad to get back to you with this, unless Lieutenant Colonel.
Okay, so they have troopers being ordered in every single day to fill the positions for the individual patrol areas.
Where's my staff?
And as a trooper, they enjoy it very much because they're reaping the benefits over the overtime, but as taxpayers, they're sort of sounding the alarm because they're literally being ordered in 7 days a week.
I can give you a bigger picture, and
Sure.
and by virtue of the fact that we're down a 6 from 1,200 to 1,000, as you can imagine, we're going to be short in a number of places. The vast majority, of course, are in the troops, and so that's about 650 or 2/3. And then major crimes has an additional 88, and that's divided across the 3 districts. And all you have to do is turn on the news to see how busy they have been for the longest time now, and
Sure.
as short as the troops are, and then other special units make up the rest.
Right. So referencing staffing still and realizing that there is a severe shortage, and you're about 999 for sworn personnel, and considering as of 2022, you have approximately 500 troopers that are going to lose their cost of living. And the majority of those 500 troopers have all told me that they're jumping ship. And that's well beyond half of your sworn personnel that are going to be gone in about 3.5 years. And you have a class in right now of 35. You're averaging roughly 54 retirements a year. I need to know if you have a staffing plan or anything coming up in the future that keeps this department solvent.
Yeah, it's an important question, and it's one that I spend a lot of my time on. I have talked at length with OPM about an ongoing number of new classes. If they come back to back, that we can be caught up before this happens. I know that people are concerned about what the near future may bring, and I'm not minimizing the seriousness of it. Fortunately, usually not everyone who says that they will leave do, but you can't make book on that. When we do our calculations, we look at who could leave at 20. We also look at what the average tenure actually is, and that's typically how we plan our next class. There's what they could do, and then there's what they ordinarily do. But as I've mentioned, and as you've acknowledged, these last 2 years have really, skewed everything, and so we've done new calculations as to what we think a more likely rate of attrition is going to be, because there is a bit more uncertainty now.
Right.
But again, if we have classes back to back for the next several years, we will be able to catch up and keep up.
Okay. Have you put that in writing? Have you submitted it to the governor and OPM to say that that's what your wishes are?
Yes.
Okay. So referencing your request in our adjustments here, you're in need of a staff attorney, and you're looking for roughly $72,786. And last year, when you referenced this body-worn camera system, you said you were in need of a forensic scientist and an IT analyst, which you did get. And that was for personal services. You were at $222,620, and you got $159,405. So that's a difference of $63,215. But in this submittal, you're asking for a staff attorney. Last year, you were asking for a paralegal. That's 2 different job descriptions, 2 drastically different pay scales, and I was wondering what the change is.
Yeah. Excuse me. So the benefit to because we have shortages throughout the agency, our legal unit consists of 5 attorneys and 1 paralegal. The advantage to having the attorney is they can do a broader scope of work, so it helps us to accomplish everything that needs to be done. And actually, the original request when we sketched out the body-worn camera program was 2 of each, and now with this we will have 1 of each of the 3 disciplines that we were requesting.
Okay. Have you consulted the Attorney General's office to see if perhaps you could use one of their staff attorneys for this position?
I have not, but I know that they are every bit as strapped as we are.
Okay. I also received notification that multiple requests were made for increase in staffing in the firearms division, and it's been brought to my attention that there are over 18,000 pending transactions of DPS-3s, which are firearm sales. And what that essentially means is there's 18,000 pending transactions that are not in the system. So if I'm a law enforcement officer or a trooper responding to a scene, or if I pull somebody over, that system is not updated. So if I bought a pistol in the last month, chances are that's not recorded in the system for the safety and benefit of our officers. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, hold on. Excuse me one second. I confirm. We've got people working 7 days a week. Yeah, why don't you go on up?
Good afternoon. Yes, unfortunately, you are
Just
correct.
have to identify yourself for the record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Lieutenant Colonel George Battle. I'm the commanding officer of State Police Administrative Services. The backlog in SLFU for those DPS-3s, the firearm transfers, is about that amount. In fact, we monitor that closely, where we constantly are trying to bring people in on overtime to address that backlog. Again, it's a manual process where they're constantly updating those transfer of firearms, and we're trying to stay on top of it to mitigate that risk. But you are correct, that is the current backlog at this time, due to staffing shortages of office assistants, processing technicians. We try not to tie up full-duty troopers in that regard, but oftentimes we do put light-duty personnel into those units to supplement the civilian staff and address those issues.
So I'm having trouble comprehending, in a post-9/11 world, in a world where guns seem to be at the forefront of discussions, and given the initiatives of our governor's administration, where he is very progressive on gun initiatives, does he know that there are 18,000 pending transactions right now? I mean, could you tell us, is that a year? Is that 2 years backlog?
There's a ebb and flow of these transactions daily. I couldn't tell you specifically. I think it's several months. I do not think it's a year. It has varied. Sometimes it's been down to a couple of thousand, and then into the 11,000. Currently, it's upwards of 18,000. So yeah, it does vary.
So when you're looking at an annual replacement plan of 250 patrol vehicles, 50 administrative vehicles, you're looking at implementing a body-worn camera system, which I do support. It certainly has its benefits. When you're looking at all these improvements technologically, but you're still missing the core service of the department where staffing is so vitally needed, and I see expenditures in other areas that may not be immediately benefiting the department, and you have such a severe safety lapse, such as 18,000 transactions, I just caution where the money is being spent or how it's being spent. And I'll move on to the NP1 contract, which is your trooper up to Master Sergeant. That contract is a 3-year contract, and it's currently about to expire on June 30th. And when we're looking at overtime savings or trying to achieve some of those savings, and when you go forward to negotiate these contracts, there's even one, clause in there where when you have a minimum, or if you have up to 4 troopers on a job, whether it's highway construction or any type of overtime job, you must have a sergeant there as a supervisor. And I've been on a number of projects, and I've heard from a number of individuals close to these projects where the sergeant, if they ever show up, is rarely there. And when there's more of a monetary advantage for me to stay at a trooper first class rank and reap all this overtime because I don't want the extra duties of a sergeant, or I don't want to be transferred to another barracks as you have to once you receive that rank, why don't you charge that senior level trooper first class with that supervisory role, which may be minuscule? But now that you have a sergeant there to oversee these 4 troopers who may have 50 years combined experience, you never know. But I just think when this contract is put together, you really need to plan for the next 3 years, because the way on this committee and on the full Appropriations Committee, the next 3 years to us are still very dire, and we're looking for any help we can get. And you have the lieutenants and captains contract. I don't know if they're offset or if they both expire on June 30th. And I know with the recently passed budget, this contract now has to come back to the legislature for our approval. And I'm hoping that there would be a more open and transparent process with this, ma'am.
Thank you. The MP1 negotiations are in process. As you know, they are led or directed by Office of Labor Relations, and the department participates, but OLR is the lead. We have made known to them those changes we would like to see in the agreement. I'm not clearly at liberty to discuss them here, but it's ultimately for OLR to achieve the best negotiation for the state that it can.
Okay. So, excuse me. So for our work group next week, I think we have a number of pieces of information that I would like. But certainly a breakdown of your overtime expenditures the last 2 years to this current fiscal year, a number of the number of overtimes expected this year, and if you could provide me with the overall sworn troopers where their 20-year mark is, because the majority of these are probably Tier 2 or Tier 2A, if I'm not mistaken. So I would just, for my sake and for this committee, I would like to start planning for the future in that sense. So I look forward to the work group next week, Commissioner, and I'm sorry to inundate you with all these questions, but
right.
They certainly need to be addressed, and I thank you for your time.
Yeah. Okay. Just, Madam Chair, just recognizing that we're meeting Friday afternoon, and we meet with you in the working group next Monday morning. We may not have everything immediately, but we will certainly get it to you as quickly as possible.
We can meet for coffee this weekend if you like.
Trust me, we work the weekend.
We know that the state police work weekends. We're very well aware. So when you get that information, if you could just get it to the administrator of the Appropriations Committee, and she'll send it out. Representative Case?